I used a lot of tech in 2023 and some of it has been awesome and some of it has been really bad and some of it's kind of floated around in the middle, and I wanted to run through all of that with you today. And just so you know, not all of this came out in 2023, but it was new to me or new to the channel in some way this year. So let's get into it. I actually wanted to start this video with the bad stuff because I didn't want to end this video on kind of a somber note, and I'm going to start with two kind of controversial ones as well because I know these are very well liked products in the tech space. And the first one is the Sony XM4s, and I know these are like hugely loved, but for me, I just cannot get on with them. Now, to be clear, I think the design is awesome. They fold, which is great, and the active noise cancelling is second to none. It's literally incredible when you put these on. But for some reason, I cannot get these to sound good. Whenever I use them, I'm always disappointed by how boomy and horrible the bass sounds. And this is an awful thing to say, but my old Sennheiser Momentums, which look kind of silly and are wired and all that sort of stuff, they sound so much better. They're more punchy and tight, whereas these just feel really loose. And I've tried absolutely everything to get these sound good. I've used the Sony EQ app, I've used the Spotify EQ, I've tried switching to Apple Music, I've tried using the wire and everything, but for some reason I just cannot get them to sound great. And obviously sound is subjective, so you could love it and that's fine. I'm not having a go at anybody that likes these, but it's gotten so bad to the point where I'm thinking about returning them because I just don't think they're doing it for me at all. So yeah, that's number one on the list. Really disappointed by the Sony XM4s. Number two on that list, and it's another controversial one, is this Peak Design Everyday Backpack. And again, another well-loved product. But for me, I think I fundamentally can't get on with it. And the reason for that is because of the way that the dividers work on the inside. Now on paper, I love this. You can kind of fold these up and make the bag however you want. But when you fill this bag with camera equipment, which is something I do relatively often, nothing feels secure for me. So I've got expensive camera lenses and bodies in there, and they're all kind of jiggling around while you're walking. It doesn't feel safe and it doesn't like kind of fill me with any confidence at all, which is a real shame because this bag otherwise is so nice. It's beautifully made. The pockets and the straps and all the extra bits you get with it are so well thought out and it's so nicely designed. I like how it looks too. But I cannot get on with this bag and I'm still using it at the moment. But every day I use it for camera gear, it kind of reminds me of why I don't like it. So yeah, another one which is a complete shame. Those are the only two bad things, but there was one thing which kind of floated around in the middle for me this year, and that was the Apple Studio display. And if you've been watching this channel for a while, you know I had this before and ended up returning it. But when I moved into the studio, I really needed a new display for my Mac. And the studio display was kind of the only one which really stuck out for me because I was only plugging my Mac into it. And the reason I'm putting it in the meh area is because while I love it, I think the speakers are great, it's got a built-in webcam which is useful and it looks gorgeous, and the 5K monitor itself is wonderful to use. When I was working at home, my monitor had my Switch plugged into it, my custom PC and my MacBook plugged into it, which I found really useful. But the studio display only has one input and it's USB-C, which means you can only pretty much plug one thing into it at a time, and that pretty much has to be a Mac for you to get the best out of it. Now that's exactly what I wanted, but for a monitor that costs over £1,000, I just think that's such a shame. Even if it had two USB-C inputs so you could switch between Macs really quickly, would be really useful. But having no HDMI or no DisplayPort or anything like that, not even a headphone out, just feels so weird. So yeah, I do love this display, but it's so expensive and it's so hard to recommend to others unless you just need it for your Mac or MacBook. Okay, moving on to the exciting stuff now, because this was the best tech that I used all year and the stuff I really liked. And first up was my iPad VESA mount, which I got from ChargeM Pro. Now this is something I had at my home office setup, and it basically allowed me to have my iPad floating next to my monitor. And it was just such a clean and lovely looking setup. I had it on one of their previous stands before, which I really liked, but having it in this floating effect was just really wonderful, and it was the perfect way to use my iPad with my desktop setup and have that full continuity between both. It only really works well if you've got it on that same monitor arm to give it that kind of floating look, but for me this was a wonderful setup this year, and I haven't managed to figure it out here at the studio yet, but I am working on it. Secondly is this little USB-C capture device. Now this one specifically hasn't been my favourite, but what it's allowed me to do has made it absolutely one of my favourite pieces of tech I picked up this year. This basically plugs into your iPad and it allows you to use it as an HDMI monitor for pretty much anything. And I mainly used it for a bit of gaming. I made a whole video on it, which I'll link up here if you want to see it. But this was probably the most fun video I made all year, and it was all thanks to this little £30 dongle. If you want to do something similar, you can pick this up, or you can pick up a better one which will give you much better results, because this has a small amount of input lag when you connect it to the iPad and a little bit of screen tearing as well, but it does deliver a pretty decent experience, and I really enjoyed playing my Switch and my PS5 on my iPad during that video. It was really fun, and if you buy a better version of it, like the Elgato HDX 60 or something, you can get way better results. But yeah, if you just want to use your iPad as an external monitor, one of these little capture cards with a USB-C on the side will do the job. Next up is something I've really loved this year, and that is the Nintendo Switch OLED model. Now, I've had the original model for quite a long time, but when Tears of the Kingdom came out, the new Zelda game, I thought now's the time to go for the OLED version because I knew I'd be playing a lot of it handheld, and it was honestly just purely wonderful to play it this way. That OLED screen is so much nicer on this version, and if you play a lot handheld, the upgrade is completely worth it. Colours just pop off this thing, and it looks so stunning. I've also been playing the new Mario game, Mario Wonder, and that looks awesome on here as well. I had a really good time with the Switch OLED. I ended up playing Zelda for over 100 hours on it handheld, and for the travel I did do, which was mainly train based, this was a wonderful companion to have. And because I ended up enjoying the Switch OLED so much, I actually pulled the trigger recently and picked up the Steam Deck OLED, and I haven't used this enough yet to kind of really talk about it, but the games that I've tried on it have been really impressive, and I'm kind of excited to give it a proper go. It is an absolute tank compared to the Switch. It feels a bit nicer to hold in the hand, but it's heavier, and my gosh, look at the size of it. But yeah, excited to try this one out. But talking about kind of handheld systems and all that, I had a bit of a retro gaming kind of itch recently. I actually ended up picking up this, which was absolutely one of my favorite pickups. This is the Miyoo Mini Plus, which is a handheld emulator, which kind of does everything up to PS1, but I've been using it to play my old favorite retro games. And because it is so small, the size of this thing is absolutely tiny, I've just been leaving it in my bag, and it's kind of become one of my new EDC items, and it is such a wonderful little system to play. I will say though, because it is so small and my hands are quite big, it's not the best for long play sessions. I can get through about maybe 20 minutes before my hands start to ache, which obviously isn't ideal, but this isn't the sort of thing I want to sit down and play for ages. It's just good for those short bursts, and it's been really, really cool. Comes in a bunch of colorways as well, but I think this white is just really nice. But yeah, Miyoo Mini Plus, great little emulator. Moving on from there is a purchase which I didn't think would become my favourite, or at least one of my favourites this year, but it turns out it has, and that is the Apple AirPods Pro version 2. I only picked these up because my Generation 1s just died. They started hissing and making all sorts of noises, and the battery just went, and I didn't think the Generation 2 would be that different, but they really are. These sound so much better, the battery life is better. I think mine were getting knackered anyway, and the form factor of these is a little nicer as well, because you get a tag in here so you can like attach a lanyard to it or something, which isn't something that I personally do, but these have been absolutely fantastic. These have MagSafe now as well, which my old ones didn't, so I can just attach these to a charger and charge them up on the go. They also have much better active noise cancelling than the last ones as well, which was awesome because they were already good. And one of the best things about this version as well is the fact that I can ping them with Find My. I often used to lose these all the time, and the fact that I can make these kind of shout when I've lost them is awesome. So yeah, AirPods Pro 2, another great thing I've really, really loved this year. And AirPods are one of those things, if I lost them or broke them or anything like that, it's one of the very few products I would buy again instantly because they're just so good. Sticking with Pocket and EDC stuff, another thing I've really liked this year is this Carhartt Pocket sort of wallet thing. I was using a Herschel one before, which I really liked, but this one has a little bit more room and it stays really compact and tiny. And what I like about it, and what I haven't actually done yet, is this one's got a small tag on the side, so I can actually attach an air tag to it so I don't lose it. Great wallet. The only thing I don't like about it is it doesn't have RFID protection, which is a shame, but otherwise it's great. Really like this little wallet. Okay, last thing in my pocket, and this is kind of an easy win for the year, but the iPhone 15 Pro Max was an awesome upgrade. We've got the bigger telephoto lens and all that sort of stuff, but I'm not really here to talk massively about that. I actually think the standard iPhone 15 was the kind of sleeper hit this year because you got the pro level camera from last year, so the 48 megapixel main shooter, and you got the dynamic island, which is a really cool upgrade for the kind of the standard model. Did keep the same processor and stuff as last year, or was the same as the 14 Pro, But that's okay, it's still a really good processor, and it also kept the little silent switch, which I think I actually prefer over the action button. Also, the array of colours it came in was just beautiful. This green one obviously is my favourite, but all of the other colours that came out as well were just awesome. If I wasn't doing all this kind of YouTube stuff and all those sorts of things, this is probably where I'd put my money if I was due an upgrade. Moving on from my pockets now to something else which is kind of small, and that's the iPad mini. Now, you'll probably know this was released in 2021, I think, which is a while ago, but I only ever had a demo unit of this. I never owned one truly, or not for a long time, but I picked one up this year, and it's actually been probably my favourite iPad this year. It's been really good because when we moved into the studio space, I didn't have a proper setup for my iPad, and I like having my iPad next to my desktop monitor, but while I couldn't have that, the iPad mini has really kind of plugged the gap, which is really nice. And because I was to and from the studio all the time, having something this small for note taking and for doing all those other things was just really, really useful. And it didn't feel like it was taking up any desk space or anything like that. I was still getting most of the functions I used too. It also reintroduced me to iPad gaming a little bit because I hadn't been doing that in a while, but having the form factor on here for a bit of gaming was actually really, really nice. Another piece of tech I've been loving since we got to the studio is the Samsung The Frame TV, which we've had placed on the wall, surrounded by other frames as well. And this is only the 1080p version, but it's actually been really, really nice. It's 32 inches as well, which isn't massive, but we've had it on a lot in the office, either watching series or mainly listening to lo-fi while we get on with work. But it's been a great kind of way to just bring the whole studio together because it gives us a central point to focus on while also kind of adding to the overall aesthetic. So that's been really great too. Okay, lastly, the thing I wanted to talk about is something I can't specifically show you because it's filming me right now, and that's the Sony FX3. I picked this up earlier in the year as a second camera body because I've been using the Sony a7 IV and I've been absolutely loving that camera. But if that broke or if something happened to it, I wouldn't be able to run this channel properly. And I knew the Sony FX3 was going to be an investment in the future because it's an incredible camera. It does 4K all the way up to 120 frames per second, and it's a body which is completely built for video. And I thought, now that I've moved into the studio, it seems like the perfect upgrade to have. And it's honestly been fantastic. It's got a fan built into it as well, so there's no chance of it overheating. And it's something I know I'm not going to be getting rid of for years and years and years. I know that it's going to stand the test of time. And obviously all of my old lenses fit right onto it. It's been a really beautiful camera to use. So that rounds up all the tech that I've been loving, hating, or thinking is just okay this year. I hope you enjoyed the video. If there's anything that you've been using this year specifically that you think has been awesome or that's been really disappointing, let me know in the comments below because I always love to read that sort of thing. And of course, I will see you all in the next one.